In December of 2024, the CEO of Klarna went on record and said AI can already do all of the jobs that we, as humans, do. 6 months later, that same CEO was simultaneously apologizing for that statement and aggressively rehiring the people he tried to replace with AI. The big tech CEOs who told us millions of white-collar jobs would be gone by now, also wrong. Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Meta all increased headcount in 2025. And the technology itself, the same people who built it are now quietly admitting it might be hitting a plateau. So today we're going to look past the hype, past the doomsaying, and look at what is actually happening with AI in the real world, beyond the platitudes and self-serving rhetoric. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, once said that AI will make us all unimaginably rich. Dario Amodei predicts that if current exponential trends continue, AI could surpass human capabilities in most areas within a few years. Jensen, Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, blurted, quote, "Software is eating the world, but AI is going to eat software," end quote. Clearly, these individuals have the most to gain from the perception that AI is the end-all, be-all technology. They have billions or even trillions in company valuations and market caps, depending on their ability to feverishly hype their own company's technologies. And it's not just a share price or IPO at stake here. There are literally trillions of dollars of CapEx at risk between the data center buildouts, chip manufacturing and distribution, model training, marketing, and yes, fueling the never-ending hype machine. Seriously, can we go 24 hours without seeing Jensen, Sam, or Dario on some podcast being platformed by CNBC or making some breathless speech about the panacea of AI? In poker parlance, a tell is a subtle sign to everyone else that you have a really great or really terrible hand. An eye twitch, how you hold your cards or play with your chips, audible ticks, all of them extremely valuable to the other players if they are paying attention. Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, may have recently provided a clear and obvious tell when he said that these AI companies need to, quote, do something useful with AI. A passive-aggressive nod that the hype around AI currently exceeds the technology's real-world capabilities. To Nadella's point, all of this spending, all of this hype, all of these breathless predictions, and the best consumer application we've produced so far is a chatbot that hallucinates more frequently than a Burning Man ticket holder. So what usefulness is being created? You know, one of the best ways to support small YouTube channels like mine is to subscribe. If you like the content and you'd like to see more of it, consider subscribing. Back to the episode. Most corporate AI projects fail to ever make it out of the pilot phase. Companies spend hundreds of thousands to coordinate carefully crafted PR campaigns letting the world know we're doing AI, only for those projects to never make it out of the testing phase. The now infamous MIT study showed that 95% of all generative AI products they reviewed failed to make it past the pilot phase. S&P Global reported that 42% of projects that made it past pilots were abandoned in 2025, up from just 17% in 2024. Volkswagen invested $7.5 billion into AI and software integrations that ultimately failed. Employees said they didn't trust it. They couldn't get Lamborghini, Audi, Porsche, or VW to agree on anything, and the project was completely written off. And yes, it's pronounced Porsche, because there are no silent letters in German. Taco Bell attempted to use AI for its drive-thru, but found that accents, background noise, and order complexity were too much for the LLM to handle. At one point, the AI system captured an order in the drive-thru for 18,000 water cups. After piloting this in 100 locations, Taco Bell's parent company, Yum Brands, abandoned plans to roll out the tech to an additional 500 locations. Amazon launched an AI-powered recruitment screening tool designed to handle job applications across its enterprise. The model was trained on 10 years of almost exclusively male applicants. Because of this, the LLM systemically downrated every female applicant. The good news? Amazon discovered this before the system was integrated into its human resources and recruiting processes. Another AI project failed. It's not like these are small companies trying to take too big a swing. These are big international companies with access to the best vendors, best consultants, and essentially unlimited resources. They can't get this right. What does that say about the 40,000 mid-sized companies chasing the same AI efficiencies? The truth is, the current version of enterprise AI almost never fails on its own terms. The AI did exactly what it was designed to do in almost every one of these cases. Amazon's model performed as trained. Taco Bell's system captured orders accurately under ideal conditions. Volkswagen's software worked, at least in theory. The failure wasn't the model, the failure was everything around the model. The data it was fed, the employees who didn't trust it, the organizational structures that couldn't incorporate it. That's a fundamentally different problem than a technology issue. At least these companies had the good sense to fail quietly. What about those who decided to fire huge chunks of their workforce first and figure it out later? In 2023, IBM laid off approximately 200 HR positions and replaced them with a chatbot they called Ask HR. But it turns out if users asked anything more complicated than how many vacations do I have left, the system would kind of crater on itself. I guess asking a chatbot to rationalize your last performance review completed by your day-drinking boss isn't a prompt that will get you anywhere. In 2024, Klarna rolled out an AI-only customer service function and claimed the 700 people who lost their jobs left through a combination of a hiring freeze and, quote, natural attrition, which is, of course, garbage. Klarna was using OpenAI's ChatGPT-4, where customers could get help handling refunds, returns, payment issues, disputes, and balance inquiries in 35 different languages. Sounds pretty impressive, right? Initially it was, but customer satisfaction dropped and complaints surged. Turns out AI is really bad with things like empathy, flexibility, and creativity. Within 12 months, Klarna began rehiring many of its customer-facing roles, with its CEO publicly saying they, quote, went too far with AI. Duolingo attempted to replace all of its human tutors with AI chatbots in 2023. As you can imagine, customers who signed up for a service promising human help were less than enthusiastic about this change. Within a week of the announcement and layoffs, Duolingo's CEO walked it back, rehired most of those laid off, and apologized to subscribers. Even when people weren't rehired for their original roles, many were rehired for new roles. IBM, Meta, Amazon, and Microsoft all rehired people they previously laid off into new roles. Many of those roles were created to support AI programs. In fact, according to a CareerMinds study of 600 HR professionals conducted in February of 2026, 2 in 3 employers that reduced headcount due to AI are already rehiring laid-off staff, and nearly a third of U.S. organizations found that rehiring costs exceeded the savings generated by the layoffs, leaving them financially worse off than before. Turns out the doomsayers may have been wrong, at least mostly. One of my personal favorite doomers, Dario, Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, predicted AI would create depression-level unemployment between 10 and 20% within the next 1 to 5 years. Goldman Sachs said 300 million jobs could be at risk of replacement by AI. Sam Altman decried a manufactured hyperbolic future, questioning the fundamental purpose of human existence. Quote, "We'll discover no new things to do when work becomes unnecessary. Purpose collapses." End quote. All of this, thankfully, turned out to be complete nonsense. Unemployment hasn't spiked. It's higher than anyone would like, but it's pretty stable at sub 5%. Hiring is up, not down at most major tech companies. Headcount in 2025 at Meta was up 14%, Amazon was up 12%, and Microsoft up 10%. And that's after Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and Meta were predicting a net reduction in workforce of between 5 and 8% due to AI replacement, and instead actually grew headcount between 9 and 14%. Most academic reviews and investigative journalism come to the same conclusion. Artificial intelligence is augmenting tasks, and only basic, repetitive tasks can be fully replaced by AI, at least for now. AI still fails to navigate complexity, nuance, or anything that requires more than goldfish-level memory. And before you jump in the comments to talk about OpenClaw and agentic vibe coding, the safety concerns and tech debt being created make vibe coding anything other than basic internal applications a non-starter for almost any large organization. So sorry guys, the rise of the machines is still just the plot line of the Terminator franchise. But here's a question we need to understand. What if the technology itself is hitting a ceiling? Researchers and AI builders themselves are facing a kind of technological reckoning when it comes to how much better LLMs can get. There are 2 major limiting factors for LLM scaling. The first is exhaustion of training sources. These models need information to train themselves, and they've largely consumed most of the widely available data. Believe it or not, Wikipedia and Reddit are two big sources of that training data. And despite new or updated information being added on those sites daily through user posts and data, in terms of AI training, the amount of new data generated on these sites is relatively small. If you look at the cost versus the progression of, say, ChatGPT-4 to ChatGPT-5, you can start to see the diminishing returns of dumping billions of dollars to train each new generation of model. The second limiting factor is architectural. Without going full nerd and getting too far over my own skis as an AI neophyte, I'll simply parrot the experts who warn that what LLMs are built on won't work for AGI. And just for clarification, AGI, or artificial general intelligence, is AI's white whale and is still years away from being achieved. Feel free to GPT that later if you want more info about AGI and what that means. So, is AI stuck? Maybe. But even if these models keep improving, even if the data problems get solved and the architecture evolves, honestly, I don't think that's the biggest barrier for AI's growth. I mentioned the MIT study earlier that's now gone viral, showing a 95% failure rate of AI projects getting past the pilot stage with enterprise-level customers. If you dig into that study and others that have been published since, you start to see why those projects fail. Hint? It's not because the technology is failing. It's because the humans inside these companies are incapable of implementing it successfully. Typically, it comes down to a few core issues: poor change management, failed integration with legacy systems, employee distrust, the grind of big company bureaucracy, and sophomoric use case planning. But instead of making a philosophical argument, let me use specific examples I've already mentioned. Klarna's AI customer service failed because it was a poor use case. The AI worked fine as designed, but the inherent limitation around AI's ability to be empathetic and flexible when dealing with customer service issues predetermined its failure. Volkswagen's project failed because they were bad at managing change and integration with legacy systems across their 12 different brands. Sprinkle in a heavy portion of employee distrust, and that effort was headed straight to the dustbin of bad ideas. Amazon fed its recruiting and screening LLM incomplete data, and the model performed as designed, creating a preferred employee composite profile that was almost completely male-oriented. Again, tech did what it was supposed to do. The model was fed bad data. Having started my own professional career back in the dark ages of the 1990s, none of this feels new to me. You should have seen the dumpster fire created by implementing email, CRM software, and don't get me started on VoIP. But those projects were relatively straightforward. VoIP phones worked the same as traditional telephones as far as the user is concerned. Email was a simple user training issue for most of the company. CRMs required some database migrations and user training, but again, pretty straightforward. Even so, every implementation took longer than it was supposed to and busted training and integration budgets wide open. Sometimes I think the only reason these implementations ever got done was because the sunk cost in software and hardware were so high, no one dared abandon the project. And those were the easy ones. What's coming next makes a VoIP rollout look like changing a light bulb in the men's fourth floor bathroom. Now imagine those same businesses, largely unchanged in culture and operation, are being asked to launch an AI product that will need to integrate with every system, access every data point across decades or even centuries of data, while always gathering and referencing new data in near real time. Systems that require every employee in the company to become proficient using it. We're not talking about new business tools. We're talking about a whole new operating system for the company. If you've ever worked for a big company, you know the Sisyphean frustration that comes from navigating the bureaucracy. Egos, fiefdoms, grudges, paperwork, emails, meetings, procurement processes, implementation planning. It's amazing anything gets done at all, and getting something as wide-ranging and consequential as an AI project launched, you're pushing a boulder up a hill every day. So if the technology works and the use case exists and the ROI is theoretically there, why does any of this matter? Because there's one inconvenient truth that nobody selling you AI wants to say out loud. AI is here and it's powerful. I believe it will become the operating system of every large and mid-sized company in the world. The productivity gains in the right applications are undeniable. While LLM technological leaps are slowing, UX, UI, and integration with legacy systems are improving rapidly. There are issues left to navigate for sure. Cost to operate these models is going up. The aging, risk-averse, middle management bureaucracy gumming up the works in most major companies, the cost to human capital and employment, all need to be figured out. And make no mistake, these AI companies must land these corporate contracts. The current market of selling a $12 a month individual subscription to a model that costs $15 per month to operate isn't a winning formula. These companies need to win big, sticky enterprise contracts to even have a slight chance to generate profits. The storybook version of AI being sold to you by the chip companies, model labs, the industry pundits, and the enabling financial media has a serious gap between the promise and the execution. Here's the truth nobody on those podcasts or CNBC segments will say out loud. The barrier to AI in enterprise isn't the technology. It never was. It's the enterprise itself. The companies struggling most with AI aren't struggling because the model isn't good enough. They're struggling because AI is exposing every point of failure in the organization, from bad data to dysfunctional teams and tech debt swept under the rug for years. Now must be exposed and dealt with because the management, board, and shareholders expect companies will be AI forward or get left behind by their competitors who can successfully land this transition. Every failed AI project, every botched rollout, every embarrassing rehire, none of it is a technology story. It's a people story. It always was. The machines are ready. The humans running these companies are the ones still catching up. That's it for this episode. As always, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.